In this video, I'm going to show you how I trimmed out my basement egress door. So since we are finishing the basement, it's finally time to move the egress door from the outside into the inside so it's flush on the inside finished wall. Now you didn't see this before, but the door is secured to some pressure treated lumber, which is then secured to the foundation using Tapcons. On the inside of the wall, you can see how I integrated the framing into the pressure treated lumber, so it's nice and perfect on the inside. Before I get started, I need to make sure that all of my fasteners that keep the pressure treated lumber to the foundation are not proud of the lumber. If they are, in a couple spots they were, I took a grinder and I grinded them down so they weren't sticking out above the pressure treated lumber. And so it's all sealed all the way around, be waterproof with just some caulk and all the pressure treated to concrete foundation joints. Okay, so I'm going to start trimming this out. I'm using PVC trim. I bought a 4x8 sheet of it. I had it cut into a carryable section at Lowe's. So this is like 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch thick, just PVC trim. It's smooth on both sides. I'm going to start with my top piece, and I took a piece of drywall, so I have a lot of it lying around right now, a piece of drywall scrap, and I'm using that as my test fit piece. So I make sure the drywall fit into the top portion of where I'm adding this, and then I'm just going to trace it onto my PVC trim. Since the PVC trim is expensive and I don't want to mess it up, I made sure to sort of template it first with a piece of 1/2 inch thick drywall. Since we're drywall in the basement anyway, you can use other material if you wanted to. So once this is all traced out with a pencil, I can cut it out using my table saw. So we'll run this over to the table saw, and I'm going to run this section through. I'm going to be making sure I'm using, safety glasses and all that stuff. And I'm just using probably a 40 tooth saw blade on this. I'm just going to run this through. So it's because it's a sheet good and it's thin, it's kind of a bit floppy. But this is perfect. This is way cheaper than buying sort of one by PVC trim. Just get a big sheet of it for when we're trimming out this jamb. So once it's cut to width, I'm going to cut it to length on my miter saw. And a sliding compound miter saw makes this a little easier. Next, I'm going to take some, this is caulk, and I believe this is a urethane caulk. It is better than silicone, and I'm going to be applying a bead of this to keep out the water. So this will do two things. It'll adhere the PVC trim to the pressure treated lumber, but it'll also keep the water out. And so I'm going to apply a good liberal bead of this to all my corners, basically 4 edges here or so, the front, and then I'll do it for all this. So we're mostly going to show you how I'm trimming out this egress doorway. Okay, so next I took my cut piece and I'm going to just brad nail it in using my brad nailer. Just going to tack that in place in a couple spots. And that'll hold this up until the caulk sets, but it should also hold it long term there too. So that's in place. Now I can do my sides. So for my sides, same process. I'm going to leave it long though. I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to scribe a line into the back side. And now I can cut that extra width off at the table saw. That way I get a more accurate fit here. And the same thing, a little bit of caulk. I'm going to use my brad nailer again, get this into place here, and make sure it's flush with the outside lumber there, the pressure treated. I'm going to go ahead and fasten this in place. It's pretty easy so far. Nothing too hard about trimming out an extended jamb like this. Just getting the material. Okay, now it's time to do the outside trim. Now this is regular 1x PVC trim. Before I began this, I marked the total length this piece needs to be by standing up my left and right side trim pieces. So now I have a mark on the wall where this top piece needs to meet the right side and left side. All right, and so that way it's flush once I install my vertical pieces, my left and right sides there. And again, this is fastened on there with a little bit of caulk. And then I'm going to start out with just the brad nailer just to pin it in place. I'm going to pin the right side in, so now that won't move. And then I'm going to take my level and I'm going to make sure that this is nice and level because I want it to look pretty good here. And I'm also going to go back to, once I don't show this, but I'll switch to a finish nailer for a longer nail, which is a 2-inch nail. The brad nailer probably isn't drive a nail long enough to do this part. And so the brad, I'll switch to a finish nailer. But once this is in, I'm just making sure my reveal is set right there. Okay, so now this is in place, and I can go back and put in some longer nails. My vertical pieces here, same process. I'm going to add a bead of caulk, position this in place, making sure it's flush over there where it meets the top piece. I'm going to take my level to make sure it's plumb. Okay, because we want to make sure, and I'm also going to make sure that reveal against the trim is set right for that inner casing, for that jamb trim. And then I'll have to go back and apply a bead of caulk all the way, anywhere I have an exposed edge, I'm going to add a bead of that urethane caulk to make sure that no water gets behind the trim and then into the basement. And so this trim will also keep out water, which is really helpful. The final piece of trim I have to install are these little jamb hiders, and this is going to hide the jamb of the actual door. And again, also this will be held in place with some brad nails, and I will caulk all of these joints to make sure that water stays out. And so that's it. This is what it looks like when it's all done. Much better, completely waterproofed, flushed on the inside. So now I can finish my basement. The door will open all the way up. If this video was helpful, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.